All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning from wherever you are in the world. Um, we've been really enjoying these morning sessions with everyone and hope you're finding value in them. I'm also posting previous meditations and tea ceremonies on the Living Tea website. So if there's a specific topic or if you'd like to join any of those, please feel free to do so. And as I mentioned, I think last week in the meditation, at some point here we are going to start to follow a sequence of meditation in terms of developmental phases, and we'll do them in segments. So maybe we'll work on a particular aspect of meditation for a period of time, and then we'll move on to the next phase. And part of the reason for that, as I often say, teachers of mine that I've had in Buddhist and Taoist practice would say you can't teach something circular in a linear fashion. So in some ways I'm taking some liberties because following that sequence is more in the Hermetic tradition. So it's a particular lineage of teaching, and there are developmental stages of meditation. So that will make more sense when we get to it, but it allows one to see that they're making progress. And I think early on, at least for a period of time in one's meditation practice, it helps to reestablish the practice more deeply so that it becomes a really deep-seated good habit, or something that one returns to every day, and it just becomes part of it becomes as natural as breathing or eating or sleeping. I think when one relates to meditation in that way, that's where it can be of extraordinary benefit to one's life. So what I find with a lot of folks and with myself is that having developmental stages or phases is helpful for a period of time, when one is becoming really deeply established in that routine or that habit. The word practice, which is a meditation practice, by definition requires repetition. And so it's more effective, even if you can only sit for 5 minutes a day, to do that than to sit one day a week for a whole hour or something. So my encouragement is to really try to find, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes in the morning and evening, some time to sit, to really establish a deeper meditation practice. I don't know many folks who could do that in 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day. So if you can find a little more time. When I say to people, ideally sit 30 minutes or 45 minutes a day, and that feels overwhelming to them, or they can't imagine how they would do it, what one finds is that it gets easier and easier to sit for longer periods of time over time. And if you can't find the time to meditate, this is something Goenka says. Goenka is a Buddhist meditation teacher who spread Vipassana meditation around the world. And if you ever have a chance to sit a 10-day Vipassana sit, I strongly recommend it. They are extraordinarily profound experiences. You sit for 10 days and you meditate for a long time each day. And Goenka says if you can't find, in that tradition they recommend an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. And he says if you can't find an hour in the morning, hour in the evening, then you especially need to. And it's really true that the more one meditates, the more focused and refined their mind and their attention becomes, and things that used to take 3 hours start taking an hour. You become very efficient in your use of energy. Because it takes a long time to develop a capacity to see ourselves objectively and to see the way our minds work, we don't recognize how much time we waste in the day through distractions. Even if you're a pretty focused person, with more and more attention and available, we can move through things very rapidly. Also, the emotions aren't taking us on a roller coaster ride all the time. They start to become more focused and concentrated, or gathered is another way to describe it. The attention, the energy, or the chi or prana, depending on what tradition you're in, begins to gather and focus and center. And when you're more grounded and calm and centered and you have more attention available, we become capable of moving through things very quickly that used to take a long time. So even though people say, I don't have time to meditate that much every day, if you meditate more, you will get more done in less time. So, and of course, in the Buddhist Tipitaka, which is the three baskets of the Buddhist teachings, or the major canon of Buddhist teachings, the most commonly repeated phrase that is attributed to the Buddha is Eke Pasego, which means come and see. Come and see for yourself. And that's because Buddhist practice and way of life is not rooted in just following blind mandates or blind ideas or spiritual platitudes or something. The Buddhist tradition is really rooted in confirming the reality of something through one's own experience. And I think that's why it's a tradition, or it's really, Buddhism is really more of a philosophy than a religion, but that it's stood the test of time and it's still quite strong and it's resilient to change, because the real root of the tradition is observe these experiences in your own life and in your own mind. And if they're true, great. And if they're not true for you, you don't need to keep them. There's nothing strongly dogmatic. So when I say meditate more and then you will need less time to do things, I'm suggesting that has been my experience, but really it's an invitation to explore that in your own life and practice. Try sitting a little bit more every day. So, see, here I go. I start rambling and then I can't stop talking. We're going to drink 3 bowls together in silence, and then we'll do a relatively short meditation. I'm drinking red tea this morning that is going out in the seasonal tea club at the end of this month. And it's a really special tea. I'm very happy to have found it. If you don't know about the Seasonal Tea Club and it's something you feel inspired to explore, please feel free to reach out with any questions. We send it out every 3 months. I do a big write-up on a particular topic for each tea club. And I really spend a lot of time curating the teas and thinking about them in the context of seasonality. And I'll also be teaching some classes on the teas and on seasonal living. And in fact, this Saturday evening's class, I'm going to be going into vitality and what it means to live in seasonal alignment with this time of year that we find ourselves in terms of diet and movement and food and herbs and tea. So if that's a topic that's exciting to you or interesting, then please tune in. All right, thanks everybody for joining. Again, in this digital space, it's not the same as being together in person, but it's still so lovely to see some faces and to connect with all of you in one way or another. So hopefully you have some tea and a kettle ready and you can enjoy some steepings together. All right. There's a man, Master Lin, who lives in Malaysia, and he's been teaching tea for, I don't know, 40 plus years. He's retired now. And I don't remember where I heard the story, but at one point he finished drinking tea after a long session in silence, and then just said out of nowhere, "Still in love after all these years." And I think that I can agree with that statement. I mean, I've been drinking tea every day for a very long time, and what I notice is that, like anything in life, can become mechanical or rote or habitual, such that there's less attention paid to it. And I think that's why, if you're in the habit of drinking tea every day, really try to create some sacred space around that time. And that's why I often say to people, make it a 3 bowls practice instead of a 20 bowls practice, because if there's no boundaries around it at all, and you just sit and drink tea for like 2 hours every morning while you check your phone and check your email and talk to a friend and on, it has this sneaky way of becoming less and less ritualistic, less of a practice that you're really using to cultivate attention, and becomes more of just another thing that's part of our humdrum everyday lives. And when that happens, which kind of happens inevitably with most things in life, we often lose what makes it so special. And that's true of any relationship. If you've been in a long-term relationship, I'm sure all of you have had a relationship at some point. And you remember in the beginning how overwhelmed with emotion and excitement you were about even the thought of the person, much less their presence. And the giddiness and the joy, and you noticed every flicker of hair and the glint in their eye, and all the details of that person were like in high definition. And it's because your attention was available for them. You couldn't stop thinking about them, or you felt their presence so frequently. Nothing's changed in that person over the last 5 years. I mean, hopefully a lot of things have changed, or maybe things have changed, but at the core level, the base chemistry and the basic connection that you had with that person, it may have transformed or grown or shifted or evolved or ripened. But the thing that has changed, sadly, in most relationships is we aren't attentive to them. We don't have the same vivifying energy of being really present with them, like they're the center of the whole universe. And as a result, we don't notice all the small things. We don't notice maybe the way that they put a clip in their hair that morning in a moment of self-appreciation or care, or the way that they prepared that meal and they added some flourish, some attention to detail. They cut up some herbs or something. I don't know. But the little things that they do to show their care and attention, we often miss those things because the person becomes so familiar that we lose that capacity for freshness and newness, or what in Zen we call beginner's mind. In cultivating beginner's mind, and a capacity for beginner's mind is what keeps life fresh. It's why somebody who's cultivating beginner's mind throughout their life, they feel like a child when they're old. When they get old, instead of being curmudgeonly and uncomfortable and angsty and pissed off and the world is unfair and whatever it is, that a lot of what happens to people as they get old and their body starts to decline. People who have lived a life of cultivation, there's a brightness like a child in their eyes, and there's a playfulness, there's a lightness, and that's because they've taken off layers and layers and layers of ego. and they've cultivated a Zen mind, which sees every moment new. And the reason that I'm sharing this is because if you put boundaries around your tea practice, it will stay ever new, always, until you die. And that's remarkable that you can have something that is so... tea is a Shen tonic. It opens the heart and it quiets the mind. It's not just that there's some special phytochemical juju in the tea that is doing that. It's also the relationship that you have to tea. And I still enjoy tea as much now as I did 15 years ago. And part of the reason for that is because I have such deep reverence for it as medicine. If you were dying, which we all are, by the way, it's just it's a slow process. If you were dying and somebody came to you with some medicine and said you can live another 10 years of really healthy life, take this medicine, you would drink that medicine with tremendous care and reverence. Tea is like medicine, everyday medicine. And it is a longevity medicine for different reasons, but it's also a Shen tonic and a Shen medicine. It keeps the heart alive. And I think what happens with so many people in life is the brightness of their Shen, the brightness of their spirit starts to become dim because of the difficulties that life presents. Life presents all sorts of difficulties. So relating to it as a Shen tonic and a way to keep the heart alive and open and the mind fresh and new, available. More attention available for the moment. Less rushing, which ironically slows things down. You know, when we do things in a hurry because the mind says faster, you have to get it done faster. And so much attention is pulled into the emotional energy of hurrying that it actually diminishes our ability to do something efficiently and well. And the quality's not there. So in terms of quantity, you might get more stuff done, but the quality goes down and you always have to go back and backtrack and redo things. So keep the practice of tea if you want it to transform your life and to keep your heart and your spirit bright. Keep it a practice that you protect. Keep your phone away from the tea table. Keep your computer away. And if that means that you can only have 15-minute sessions in the morning, then just have a 15-minute session. And again, eke passe go, come and see. Find out for yourself, but give it a real try. Like at least 2 or 3 weeks, have the practice be something that is contained. And in the practice, be really attentive to your body. Are you slouching? What's your attitude? Where is your emotional being? Where's your mind in the practice? And try to clear things out. So it's not just boundaries around not doing other things. It's boundaries around your clarity. So have boundaries around being really attentive. Treat it as a mindfulness practice. And the last thing I want to say before we sit is the 3-bowl practice or 6-bowl practice, whatever you want to call it. At its most basic level, you know, we work with intentionality. There are practices, but at the most basic level, use it as an opportunity to relax. So maintaining a bright spine or a strong spine, but breathing deeply and letting go of worries, contraction, tension, tightness. If you breathe deeply and you let the medicine of the tea work in the system, by the time you enter into meditation, you're already in a meditative space. So oftentimes in meditation, if you only have 20 or 30 minutes, the first half of it, you're spending your time just trying to get the system and to get the mind to focus and to calm your being down, to embrace meditation or to find a place of stillness. If you do that practice through tea as an introduction, by the time you begin the meditation, you can already enter into a deeper space out the gate. So, you know, I sometimes say every cup of tea or every tea has a story to tell and represents an imaginary journey. And that is definitely true. We could talk about that one sentence for quite a while. I'm not going to go into it, but what I will say is the more attentive you are to the tea, our olfactory senses are the most closely associated with our memory. And oftentimes I'll be drinking a tea and all of a sudden I'm in a place in China or Taiwan or somewhere that I've had a tea session on top of a mountain, or with a dear friend where we broke through something, or a breakup in a relationship, or it happens. If you're attentive and available to the tea, that it goes in and unlocks memories that we might be holding in our body and heals them. And I think people who drink tea as a practice probably can relate to this, that it's such a healing medicine, but it requires your participation. So if you're busy doing other things and just drinking tea casually, you're not giving the medicine the opportunity to work at these deeper levels. You have to meet it halfway. And this is true in herbalism for sure, that it requires, something Buddha likes to say is herbalism, Chinese herbs, and this is true of Western herbs as well, they require our participation. We have to meet them part of the way. It's not like a magic pill that you just take and then everything changes. We have to also work on our end to meet the medicine where it's at. And this is part of what it means to be in dialogue with nature. And so tea is inviting you to be in dialogue with this spirit of this plant. There's a really beautiful book called Plant Spirit Medicine, written by Elliot Cohen. And if you're into herbalism and into plant medicine, I really recommend reading it. A lot of the practices and teachings there are about how to communicate more deeply and more fundamentally with the plant world or with nature. How do we really open up the lines of communication? The way that all these herbs were originally discovered and explored in terms of their medicinal qualities was really through shamanic practice. People were cultivating a dialogue and a communication with the plant world, and going into an openness and a state where the mind is not blocking everything and assigning meaning, vase, tree, censer, pot. When we can get out of labeling everything and open up to a different form of noetic communication, or communication at a deeper level of awareness, these plants have a tremendous amount to teach us, but we have to get out of the way a bit. Drinking tea and observing thoughts. So the meditation we're going to do is about observing the way that the mind is constantly trying to insert thought, and how to work to go beyond that, to go to a space beyond the level of thinking. All of this can be cultivated in a mindfulness practice with tea, and I still have not found a better plant medicine that is gentle, that doesn't rattle your whole consciousness and rip open your chakras, which, ayahuasca or peyote or some of the other plant medicines, they have their place, they're quite profound medicines, but they're very jarring to the psychic system. And I think used in excess can actually cause some damage. Better to open up and develop these muscles of the chakras and the psychic system gradually, and to open up our awareness more gradually. As one of my teachers once said, if you were to remove all the filters of personality, and you removed all of the filters of identity, and you were to see reality as it actually is, and you did it all at once, you'd go crazy. And people do go crazy, when they do psychedelics or acid or something like that, or even people who meditate a ton and they're not balanced in the rest of their life. That can be too much for the system, which is why this work takes time and it takes patience, and we develop a deeper capacity to see, but also to open up the psychic system over time. And I find tea to be such a gentle, in supportive plant medicine to help in that process in a way that's very healthy. The development is very natural and healthy. So, as per usual, I've said more than I wanted to before we go into meditation, but you start me talking about tea. I obviously love tea very much, so I have a lot I like to share about it. So, let's start this meditation, and then if you have any questions about anything I just said, we can go into that afterwards. So, find a comfortable seated position. If you've got knee problems or discomfort in your hips or your knees, you can sit in a chair. But if you're sitting in a chair, you want to sit upright so that the spine is straight, and try to keep the knees together if you can. Again, that might be uncomfortable initially, but over time it will become comfortable. The shins should rest on the ground flat so that you're creating a really strong triangle base. And it should be a strong base so that you're not making micro adjustments in your muscles in your body to compensate to stay in balance. You really want so that if somebody came and pushed you, you'd have a strong foundation. That foundation will allow you to be less constrained by micro movements in terms of the level of the mind. The hands, there are different mudras that one can take. The dhyana mudra is with the hands palm and palm, and the thumbs very gently touching at the top. That's described as if a piece of paper could slide between. Why that's relevant is it means that there's some part of your attention that's very gently holding the thumbs together. They're not just casually kind of sitting in your lap. But the whole body, there should be a tension, a mild tension throughout the entire body that keeps you alert and awake throughout the meditation practice. And then the hands can rest in the lap. Roll the shoulders back. And if you tuck the chin a little bit, you'll notice that what happens is you roll forward on the abdomen and the sit bone, which allows your spine to stay straight. Posture is as important to meditation as anything else that you do. In some traditions, they would say just find the right posture and sit. So once you've found that, we can start. You might bow gently, bowing to yourself, bowing to Buddha nature, bowing to everyone in this meditation together, that it be a fruitful meditation. So coming into your breath and just taking through the nostrils a number of deep breaths to come into the body, into this moment. Allowing the breath to become smooth and full. Noticing the transitions between the inhalation and exhalation. Allowing your breath to breathe you as much as you're breathing it. Placing the tip of the tongue against the upper palate where the palate meets the teeth, and allowing the teeth to gently touch. Drawing upwards and back, the back of the head, straightening the spine. Feeling from the crown of the head a string pulling right from the crown straight upwards to a star directly above you, far above you. Feeling it tugging gently to pull the whole body upwards. Feeling the heart open and bright. Taking a couple big deep breaths to feel the body open and bright. Starting at the crown, take a deep inhalation, drawing all the way down to the perineum, to your root where you're seated on your mat. And with your next inhalation, feeling another string coming out of the center of the body all the way down to the core of the earth. Like the taproot of a tree. Feeling the earth pressing up against you just as the weight of your body presses against the earth. Your existence here and now. Feeling the weight of your body. Feeling very grounded, centered. And now a big inhalation, and as you exhale, draw the energy from the root back up into the heart. And spend some time just breathing with your attention in your heart. Feeling any tightness, contraction, any worry or fear or fright. And just breathing a bright light into the heart, allowing it to open fully. Letting go of any worry or doubt. Beginning to feel the joy of the heart as it opens. As you start to feel that joyful openness, allow the energy from the heart to begin to pervade through the whole body. Wherever you feel tightness, tension, contraction, worry, anything you're holding in the body that isn't open and full of joy and bright happiness, allow that energy to fill in that space so that the whole body is light and open. Grateful for this moment. As that energy starts to fill the whole body, notice as you scan the whole body, are there any areas of darkness or resistance, contraction? And with the breath, you can breathe this bright, joyful energy into those areas. And notice if any specific thoughts come up as you breathe this bright, joyful energy into those areas. Feeling the body as a whole, imagine that every pore of the body begins to open with this bright light. Inhaling and exhaling as if the whole body is breathing, not just the nostrils or the lungs, but the whole body is expanding and contracting. Every pore is open. Keeping the awareness of the body. As the mind drifts away, you can come back to the sensations. Just feeling the entire body breathing at once. As you feel the whole body breathing, you can begin to inhale joy and peace, exhale worry and tension. Inhale joy and peace, maybe smiling around the eyes. Exhaling worry and tension. Just do some rounds of this, taking deep breaths. feel this light brightness, this open brightness start to shimmer, become dim. Inhale peace and joy, and exhale to expand that light out. Imagine that through all the pores of the body, this energy of joy is expanding outwards to a couple feet around the whole body, like a cloud around you. And as you exhale tension or worry, it just gets pushed outside of this cloud. If your attention wanders, just come back to the body. Come back to feeling the whole body breathing in, bright, open, joy and peace, exhaling out tension and worry, letting it go. Now, allowing that cloud or shell of bright light to stay strong, and when you feel it flicker, you can reestablish it with the breath. Drawing all your attention now to the nostrils, to the sensation of the inhalation and exhalation, the air passing in and out of the nostrils. Drawing all your attention to just observing the breath as it enters and exits the body. Taking a number of breaths here and just observing. As the mind wanders, just draw it back to observing the breath. Without losing awareness of the breath, letting the shoulders relax, bringing the spine straight again, maybe tucking the chin. As we stay with just observing the breath, observe any thoughts that come up. Take a note for a moment of the thought. What is it about? And then try to bring the attention gently back to the breath, observing the inhalation and exhalation. Just observing the thoughts as they arise, not trying to change them. Taking note of the content and then bringing the attention back to the breath, allowing those thoughts to subside. no thoughts arise and you can just stay with the breath, and just stay with the breath, observing it. As the mind gets bored and tries to insert itself, just take note of the quality of the thoughts. What are they about? And come back to the breath. We'll stay with this practice of observation and coming back to the breath for some minutes. Letting go of any tension in the shoulders. If the mind is wandering too much, take a couple deep breaths and just bring the attention back. The mind is wandering off into the future or the past. Just take note and bring the attention back to the breathing. with a couple deep breaths, allowing the attention to drift from the breathing down into the heart. Feeling the heart still and calm, open and full of joy for this moment, for this time you've taken for yourself, and for this precious life we live. Feeling gratitude in the heart for this day and for whatever opportunities or adversity might come your way this day. To have gratitude. Bringing the palms to heart center. May all people whose path I cross today receive my joy and my peace and my attention. May all beings be happy and contented. May all beings know presence and love. May all beings be free. Finding your way back into the room, and as you're ready, you can start to open your eyes. Maybe take a moment to notice the colors in the room and the shadows, any sounds you hear. Just taking a moment for gratitude for whatever is going on in this moment. So this practice is helpful in alleviating worry or fear or doubt in the heart that we carry, which really starts at the level of the mind. There's so much that happens in life that the mind can easily latch on to things and create stories around them, which turn into beliefs. And as those beliefs become part of our subconscious, those beliefs will begin to inform our actions and our thoughts. And so a practice of consciously letting them go, inevitably by 7 p.m. tonight, I'll be a worried mess about some nonsense. But at least for now, for a period of time, you begin to expand out this spaciousness such that more and more readily your baseline is centered and calm and grounded and connected. The other thing is that gratitude and worry are not, they're antithetical to one another. So when you find yourself in a moment getting really caught up or upset about something in life, or angry or what have you, taking a moment, and it sounds kind of cliche because you hear people be grateful for this or grateful for that. It is one of the most profound tricks we can play on ourselves, and it's not actually a trick. I'm not suggesting that you lie to yourself, but connecting with gratitude, the energy of gratitude is very open. So if you take a moment, if you're very upset or angry or unfocused or having a difficult time in life or in a moment, just writing out 5 things or a stream of consciousness about things that you're grateful for is a very powerful practice for opening. You cannot be contracted and closed and truly grateful at the same time. The other thing is that gratitude attracts, like meets like. It's like a law of vibration, that if you are in a mindset and an experience of abundance and grateful for the abundance of your life, which might be just a cup of tea, you attract more abundance in your life. You attract more love. You attract more gratitude and care. If you are constantly worried and in a state of contraction and fear and scarcity, you will attract more of those things into your life. So where attention goes, energy flows. So if you're coming from a place of grounded openness, gratitude for abundance, gratitude for your life, gratitude for this moment, and that is the energy you are putting out into the world, that is what you will receive back from the world. If you are kind to people, you will receive kindness back from them. If you are giving, you will receive gifts. This is the natural way that things flow. And it's also kind of a secret to creating the life that you want. If you're wanting a certain life and it looks a certain way, but that's not your internal reality, then, this is also like in Hermeticism, as above, so below, as within, so without. The reality that you create within your own being is the experience you will have of the world externally. And that world will start to reflect it back to you. So these practices of meditation, these practices of cultivation are so essential to connecting to reality. The reality first within ourselves, and then the reality that we wish to have reflected back to us. The last thing I want to say is this process of observing the thoughts as they arise in the mind. For the most part, those thoughts can just be dismissed. They're just the mind doing what the mind does. But if you realize in the practice, and I recommend people regularly come to a practice of just observing the mind, observing the thoughts, or observing certain emotions that keep coming up as a result of those thoughts. Most of those thoughts can just be disregarded. They can just be kind of gently swept away with the attention. However, if there are certain thoughts, maybe it's a person or a concept or an insight that keep coming up, they keep asserting and inserting themselves into your awareness. What that means is that is a core node of thought that you're holding on to. And if you're holding on to it, it means it's either a source of maybe great joy or deeper insight, if it's an insight. But if it's one that causes contraction in the body, and this is why we have practices to observe and see what's happening in the body. If a thought keeps coming up every day, every time you try to meditate, then that thought is trying to tell you something. It's trying to get your attention. And that might be the source of your worry, the source of your contraction, the source of an obstacle you need to push through in order to get to the next stage in life around some area that you're working on in life. And hopefully you're working with goals or aims or things you want to work towards. And you might keep coming up against something. Or we often observe in our lives, we keep doing the same things over and over again, right? If that thought keeps coming up as you do this practice of observing your thoughts, then at the end of the meditation, jot it down. And you'll notice as it keeps coming up, okay, this is an area that I don't see in my conscious mind. It's coming up out of the unconscious or subconscious. And my deeper wisdom, my being is trying to tell me, okay, pay attention to this thing. If it keeps coming up, then you can create a practical plan around, oh, that's something that needs to be addressed. How do I want to address it? What are the steps I'm going to take? Because I think that worry is something we try to just get rid of all worry or all contraction. And actually, some of that is pathological, but some of it is actually our deeper wisdom trying to come up and say to us, look at this thing, and work with it in your life. Create a plan around it. How do you want to address it? How do you want to overcome it? This is a way that we can start to bring the meditation practice into the way that we're living our daily life, and how we can overcome these difficulties in our process of developing and growing. So that's all I want to say about that topic, but I hope that you all gained some benefit from this meditation and from these sessions, and that they're supportive to you in one way or another. Thank you all for coming so much, and I'll stay on for a few minutes if anybody has a specific question that's coming up. And otherwise, we can all move on with our day. All right, thank you everybody for coming so much. It's so nice to see all these faces, and hopefully sooner or later we can all enjoy some tea together, more in person. So take care.